All right. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are. What is up, everybody? Can we do a quick audio check? Audio and video is good. Awesome. Let's give it a minute. Let everything load up. Let me just double check everything. Yes, we've got the composites. We've got BTC, VWAP, rep, the Forks Factory. Everything is going. Good evening, Leon. What's up, Prats? What's up, Jano? We got Karma GG. What's up, man? Denise, Hamza. Got all winners in the chat. What is up? Do we have any fathers with us today? Happy Father's Day for those of you who celebrated it. Hey TJ, hope you're doing well, man. Good evening. What's up, Al? I'm far away from that. I mean, you will be one day. I'm a father of two, and I'll be honest, bro. It's the best thing that has ever happened to me. Thank you, man. Thank you. Happy Father's Day to you guys as well. For those of you who are fathers among us. I hope you got spoiled today. Like, some quality time for yourself. You know how it is, right? We value our time. So yeah, that's great. This chart is good. Reset chart view. Let's get rid of the crosshair real quick. Arrow. Good evening, CJ. Hope you're doing well, man. Soldier Boy with the Ethereum analysis. Maybe we'll do one at the end. Thank you, Pi. Hope you're doing well, man. Welcome back to the stream. One more minute and then we're kicking it off. Got some few more people joining us. We got a nice group already. Bring on the likes already. Let's see if we can get like 100 likes before we begin the stream. Let's see if we can do that. That will be amazing. That will be amazing. So let's get this in here. So, before we're going to be kicking this off, I do want to do a quick mention here to Bybit. They are, hosting a trade event where the Trade Masters Grand Prix Series 3 is actually live, where you can win 1.5 million USDT in prize pools. Now, as you know, my streams are sponsored by Bybit, so if you sign up through my link, A, you can make a chance of winning the 1.5 million prize pool, and B, everything that you see within my stream is accessible for free. The only thing that you have to do is sign up an account on Bybit and then, send over some funds and start trading. Now, if you can't really do that in terms of your region, we also offer the same thing for Blowfin. So I will link both the exchanges below for those of you who are rewatching this on the recording. Just know that you can access everything for free. So big shout out to Bybit for sponsoring the stream. Definitely check them out. We've got like a nice group of people today with us. So let's switch towards the live section here. And we're going to be pulling up the Bitcoin prep section. So what are we going to be doing today? We're going to be taking a look at market profile. Then we're switching towards VWAP. Then we're switching towards the actual trading plan of the week. You guys know the drill by now. And, so let's dive in. If you have questions, by the way, make sure that you ask all the questions in the chat. At the end of the stream, we're going to be doing a quick Q&A where I'll be going over everything. I just want to do like a fluent breakdown on Bitcoin here without any interruptions. After that, I'm reading through the chat and I'll be covering all your questions. So let's get rid of this. We do not have consumer sentiment at 2 p.m. UTC. Hell no. So it is the 15th of June already. We've got like 2 more weeks until we've got a new quarterly value. That's going to be extremely important. In terms of impact for news events this upcoming week, it's going to be a big one. We've got FOMC on Wednesday. And, I think if there's going to be a news-driven event, it's definitely going to be occurring on Wednesday. Oftentimes, what we get is, let me show you guys on a different chart. So if you go towards this BTC pair right here, and we go towards an H2, these lines right here have marked out the previous FOMC meetings, right? If we're taking, let's get rid of the crosshairs, are driving me nuts already. So if we're taking a look at the first line, we've got the FOMC in January. Basically what the market did was we opened up the week here. Let me just zoom in a bit more. So leading up to the FOMC, we got risk off, right? Everybody's hedging. We got some downside within the markets. And then on Tuesday - Monday, we usually form the low of the week before we're getting some relief. Is that relief that is occurring due to FOMC? Is that going to be high time frame bullish? I don't really know. But what I do know is that almost all times, look, this is from January. Then if we go towards March, we got some downside early on in the week. Then on Tuesday, we formed a low. FOMC on Wednesday, relief, right? So let's take a look at this example. Downside early on in the week, the low forms on Tuesday, FOMC, relief. So if anything, one thing that I'll be keeping a close eye on, and this is without me breaking down TPO, without me breaking down the longer term VWAPs and so on, I think if we're going to be getting some downside early on in the week, and let's say, we've got like previous month VWAP here. Let's say that we are unable to, we sweep this low, reclaim it, and then on Tuesday we form the low, reclaim this. I think during FOMC and afterwards, we might be setting up for some relief, at least back within this cluster. Now there's a large amount of confluence between certain levels here. We will go over that in a bit, but purely hypothetically speaking, from previous dynamics leading up to FOMC, it is usually risk off heading into the event. Then we get relief, right? They are covering their shorts or they're buying back their positions. We're getting some relief. FOMC turns out to be a nothing burger, or it turns out to be good news, which causes more relief. And at that point, it's going to be very important to see, let's say that we get good news, you want to see the C continuation right away, similar to what we saw right here, right? Continuation right away, next leg upwards. However, if there's good news and we just fail to break above and then reclaim the range, for example, like that would be extremely bearish, at which I think we're running the lows again, right? But this is without me breaking it down from a structural perspective. So first things first, we're going to be taking a look at TPO. And for that, I'm going to be using Sierra chart. And I'm going to be asking myself this question: what is the most recent development in terms of TPO? Did we form a new composite? Did we break away from that composite? Do we have anomalies in the form of a naked point of control? Do we have poor highs? And so on, right? So for those of you who are new to the channel, top left, we've got daily profiles. Right here, we've got weekly profiles, monthly profiles, and this is what I call a composite layout, where we're only going to be merging profiles. So I am able to see what is occurring within those 4 days and when we actually have a 4-day composite, right? I want to see both iterations of this. Now, moving towards what is actually important, I'm going to go towards this chart here and I'm going to be zooming a bit in. So undo all merges within this profile right there. Now, you could ask me, well, why in the actual fuck are we merging all 4 days together whilst there's no real value overlap? I can agree with you. However, one of the rules of market dynamics state that whenever the overall perspective here is telling us that, hey, we're having 4 days of overlapping value, or not necessarily overlapping value, but we're having 4 days of a range-bound environment. If nothing is really occurring, right? This is the day. We have a range day, and then we move back towards fair value, right? So nothing is really changing. So in essence, this is what we call a 4-week composite. Now, why is this important? Well, value has been migrating higher from this composite, where we accepted above, we accept back within previously established value, rotate higher, right? We form new value. Now we're starting to rotate lower again. So the most recent shift in condition is down. That's bearish, all right? So that's what I want to be aware of. What else do I want to be aware of? Well, we've got if I zoom in on a regular daily profile, we've got a composite value area low here from the past 4 days. We've got a naked point of control. We've got a poor high intraday, and we are setting up for a potential 1, 2, 3-day composite right now. Do keep in mind that the composites from the weekend aren't necessarily super useful. I mean, it's been pretty straightforward that the past few months, or maybe even the last year, that weekends tend to be a composite because of this. There's nothing happening anymore during the weekends, right? Back in 2017, we had these insane weekends of upside or downside, whatever. But right now, nothing is really occurring in the weekend, which is a good thing, right? We can actually do something with our time and go outside. But yeah, so let's just summarize this on the daily. Now on the weekly, I want to point something out as well. I think that we are setting up for a 4-week composite because we've got 2 weeks of overlapping value, which is pretty clear to me. This was a breakaway week, which was the 3rd week. So on its own, I wouldn't necessarily have added this within the composite. However, what I think is going to be occurring here is that when this week closes like that, essentially what we have is another 4-week composite. So that's what I'll be looking at, right? If I right click, merge with next profile, let's add them all together as a 4-week composite. To me, this is a good looking composite, right? We've got a nice profile distribution in the middle. So as all we're really doing is we are range bound within this composite. Now, the big question will be, is this going to be reaccumulation before the next leg upwards? Or are we going to be forming a distribution? Okay. So let's write everything down briefly before we forget what I've just said. Bitcoin prep, market profile. We have value is migrating lower as shown by the acceptance below the recent 4-day composite value area. We are also currently forming another 2-day composite value area with a potential 3-day composite value area, right? If today closes like that, we've got an upcoming 4-week composite value area, and we've got poor highs intraday. So, summary, purely based on TPO, I would say low time frame, it is clear that Bitcoin hints at a bearish development as value continues to migrate lower. From a higher time frame perspective, it remains in a rotational environment, right? Let me just quickly refresh in your mind. Higher time frame, 4-week composite, right? Where all we're basically doing is we're bracketing between the extremes of this value area, right? So remains in a rotational environment from the past 4 weeks. Now the question is, will this be an all-time high distribution, or are we simply loading up before the next leg higher? For that answer, we will have to take a look at VWAP. Moving towards longer term VWAPs. Again, we have got yearly time frame, quarterly time frame, monthly time frame, weekly time frame. Yeah. And bear with me, guys. You can ask all the questions in the chat. I'll be going over them once this prep is done. So yearly time frame, if we zoom out, let's be honest, all we're really doing is we are bracketing between these, whoops, my bad, need a new mouse. We are bracketing between the standard deviation tree from previous year value and the developing year value area high, right? It's ping pong. So we shouldn't be surprised that this formed a low. And I am actually surprised that we didn't take out these highs, to be honest. But we're back at the developing year value high. This is what I call a bullish line in the sand. Acceptance back within developing value. I don't think it is worth looking for longer term longs until we trade below these lows into 39k-ish, right? Because from a developing standpoint, that would be significantly bearish. Now, one thing that I do want to point out is on the quarterly, the initial reaction here was great. Super clean trade, right? However, what I don't like is that after such a strong move upwards, we have now fully retraced it already, which is mainly due to the war between Israel and Iran, right? I hope everybody's doing fine on that end, by the way. Hope nobody's involved, or, you know, I think it's horrendous that humanity does shit like this, but, you know, let's just not think too much about it. What I do want to point out here is that we are now trying to get out of developing value. Let me show you. We are trying to get out of the developing value area high there, but we can't really do it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe the sixth H12 close that is not really able to close back above the developing year value high. Could this be an indication that we might be revisiting this low back into the previous quarterly VWAP? Okay. So purely based on the higher time frame, I can't really be super bearish here unless we start to accept below 100.6k. If we do that, I mean, on the higher time frame basis, that will be an indication that we are accepting back within the developing year value. We're accepting back within previous quarter value, at which I think a rotation towards 92, 90k-ish is going to be on the cards. To show you the significance of a failed break or acceptance back within developing value, let's take a look right here. Consolidating above developing year value, acceptance back within, couldn't close back above. There we go, bear market. Now let's take a look at the previous interactions, right here. Acceptance back within developing value, can't break back above developing value high. Where do we go? Right there, right? Try to break back above, reject it. Where do we go? Developing value area low. So developing value on the year is actually going to be a great tool for us to determine what the next quality destination is going to be. So from a hard time perspective, this needs to be holding it. And then I would argue indeed that an A plus trade could be, if we were to do this, everybody gets extremely bearish, reclaim the low, but then for me, it needs to be trading back above the developing year ASAP. I think if you really want to be trading like a bigger portfolio and you need to be waiting for some A plus trades based on the higher time frames, what do we need to see? We can have 2 weeks here, right? 2 weeks, whatever we do within 2 weeks. However, within 2 weeks, this developing quarterly value is going to be closing like this, similar to how this was that previous quarter, right? When we had the initial rejection there, acceptance back within, where do we go? Opposite extreme. That's the swing trade that you want to be trading, right? Acceptance above previous quarterly VWAP, support confluent with demand, where do we go? Opposite extreme. Retest, boom, new highs. Listen, new previous quarterly value is so goated that if I were to choose only a single time frame, then this would be it for me to be trading it. Altcoins, Bitcoin, Forex, doesn't really matter. It's all purely based on the previous quarterly value, in my opinion. So that being said, what happens if within 2 weeks, previous quarterly value closes? We've got value area high up here. We've got VWAP. Nope. We've got VWAP here. We've got VWAP there. And then at the bottom half, we've got the value area low. Very straightforward trade is if we trade here, we are rotational between the value area high and the VWAP. That means to me that any pushback within the value area high that fails to hold a support is a swing short for a move back into VWAP, right? Acceptance below VWAP is another swing short for trade towards value area low, 84. Conversely, if we trade here, any failed break below VWAP is a swing long for a move towards value area high. Any break above value area high is confirmation that we're likely going to go towards all-time high. All right. So that's going to be the hard time frame play that I think is going to be very, 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 very important within the next 2 weeks. So with that being said, does that mean that there are no trades before heading into that quarterly close? No, of course not. We will be trading nonetheless, right? Whether that's going to be developing value or whether that's going to be previous month value, doesn't really matter. But what we do want to see here is on the monthly time frame, we were breaking away from previous month value. This right here should have been support and we should have went towards the highs. That is why I was leaning. The trade that we were discussing on last Sunday, I believe, was sweep the low, reclaim previous month VWAP, and then we go towards the highs. Something along those lines. I can't really recall, but we nailed that trade pretty much. However, when we were trading up here, honestly, I would have preferred to see continuation. Short-term consolidation, boom, another leg upwards into these highs, that high, for trend continuation. The fact that Bitcoin was not able to hold the support trade it back within. At that point, for those of you guys within the Discord know that we were stalking shorts up here. However, just fell short, right? Got front run here by this wick, and then we moved towards the VWAP here. So what are we doing on a monthly? Essentially, all we're really doing is we are trading between monthly value area high and monthly VWAP, which makes this our bullish line in the sand heading into next week. Why is this going to be my bullish line in the sand? Well, I think you guys can already tell that if we start to close below previous month VWAP, the value area low will be on the cards. Yeah, so we're just going to be playing a simple rotation here. Then we're moving on towards the weekly. Not super important, but it's good to see the lower time frames react as the way that they do. We've got previous week value, resistance. We are not able to accept above. Where did the actual low formed? We've got a high volume bar there, closed above the point of control at previous week value area low. So that was the low. Continuation higher for a trade back towards the previous week value area high. So this is how you can perfectly trade these exhaustion moves, right? When you know when and where to start taking trades. What I do want to point out is next week, previous week VWAP, in my opinion, around 107K is going to be a big one because we've got the 4-day composite value low up here as well. So I'm thinking, should there be a sweep of the highs? We've got the 30-day VWAP here. I will show you guys that in a bit. This should be the cap on upside. So to put it blunt here, we got buyers stepping in at developing year value area high. We have acceptance within developing quarter value. Maybe another sweep of the lows, right, into previous quarter value area high. We are rotational within previous month value, where we have previous month VWAP as our bullish line in the sand. And then we are unable to accept above the previous week value area high, upcoming previous week VWAP, potential bearish line in the sand. All right, that brings me towards the rolling VWAP. If you go quickly towards the regular chart here, let's go back towards what we have here. And let's get rid of all of the drawings and enable the rolling VWAP. This is what basically scares me. Now, I tweeted about that as well. H4. This is the 7-day and the 30-day that are starting to coil up here, right? We're overlapping these two. And we're kind of consolidating slightly below after forming a distributive high after taking out this high. This is the tweet, right? We took out this high. Now we're starting to form a tight consolidation below, right? If we're taking a look at that previous interaction, we had the same thing basically, where this was the high. We took it out, distributive price action. Then we were kind of crunching here below the 7-day and the 30-day. And then we weren't able to accept back above, which led to a flush lower. If we were to get the same scenario right now, where this ends up being the cap on upside, I'm going to be targeting these lows into the 90-day rolling VWAP as a potential longer term low. It's confluent with a lot of other things, but I think from a trending perspective, the first retest at the 90-day rolling VWAP will probably be your best bang for your buck for a big relief back upwards, right? Not saying that we're getting it. I just want to have it within my journal so that I am aware. Should shit hit the fan, that's next week with FOMC or whatever, I know what to look for. Also, this gives me a really clean invalidation, because if Bitcoin is genuinely bearish, let me zoom in. If Bitcoin is genuinely bearish, the 7-day and the 30-day VWAP needs to be capping upside for a move towards maybe previous month VWAP, maybe previous quarterly value area high, or if it's really that bad, maybe even the 90-day, right? Now, conversely, a clean smash back above that level, and we're gunning towards these highs in my opinion. So heading into next week, this is going to be our dynamic bearish line in the sand. Also keep in mind that it is confluent with the upcoming previous week VWAP. It is confluent with that 7-day or 4-day value area low from the past few days. So in terms of an ideal short, let's finish this first and then we're going to go over some of the hypos. So rolling VWAP, we've got compression below 7-day and 30-day VWAP, which is often not a good sign. Not a good sign. Also confluent with upcoming previous week VWAP, which means this will be our dynamic bearish line in the sand. Summary. Going to be a long one. High time frame. Bitcoin is still looking okay-ish, with it respecting the previous quarter value high and developing year value high. However, this recent drop is not what you want to see after such a strong reaction from the lows. Given that we have FOMC this week and that the last few times it caused a risk-off event heading into the beginning of the week, I am keeping an open mind. Apologies for the lap, for the text here. I'm keeping an open mind to a potential drop back into previous month VWAP early this week, followed by some relief on Tuesday pre-FOMC. After that, it will be highly dependent on what our boy J. Paul is saying. So the narrative, right? The narrative for next week. We know that we have FOMC. We know that FOMC has usually, or at least for this year, has caused risk off, or in other terms, downside leading up to the event. On the day of the actual event or slightly before that on Tuesday, we're getting relief. Positions are being unwind, hedges are closing. And then depending on, what Jerome is saying or what the outcome of the FOMC is, we're either getting some expansion higher or it's going to be a cap on upside and we should be trading lower. What I do know, because I'm no macro expert, but what I do really know is my levels of interest. And that means this cluster here is going to be either the A+ short for me, A+, for a move towards previous month VWAP, previous quarterly value high, and potentially the 90-day rolling VWAP, right? Or we're going to be cleanly breaking above, at which I think we should be getting a short-term consolidation retest before new highs. So how are we going to be trading that? First, let's put this within the narrative. Given the above, my main focus will be around the 4-week value area low, which is confluent with previous month VWAP for potential longs, and the 30-day VWAP for potential shorts. So let's just draw that out on the chart. Let's draw that out on the charts. Let's get our drawings back in. H2 time frame here. So zooming in our current situation is why things are a bit tricky. I don't blame you if you're looking at the chart right now and you're like, bro, I don't know what the fuck I need to be doing, right? And I'll be honest, I only see 2 trade-ish, but even those 2 trades that I'm seeing this week aren't as comfortable. I'm not as comfortable as I was with the trades from last week, because this to me was such a super clean trade back into that previous quarterly value high, acceptance back within the 16-day composite. Boom, there we go, right? That was like a really clean trade. However, right now, I would argue that usually when Bitcoin forms like a big wick like this, let me just get rid of everything right now. Like this, let me just clean this up. If Bitcoin forms a wick, like a cascade that we saw before, similar to this one right here, the midpoint of that wick is usually support before we're getting expansion higher, right? So if we were to draw out this midpoint here, I think it's confluent with that previous month VWAP, sweep into it, then we're getting a leave back, maybe into this high or whatever, right? So how would that look on the lower time frames? Well, let's get back to the drawings. Let's get back to the drawing board. Right now we're compressing. I think should we do this where we have this low, start trading towards the 4-week composite value area low, the upcoming and the previous month VWAP. That's our bullish line in the sand. Should we sweep the low, reclaim that low, and like this, right, where the market is clearly telling us, hey guys, you know, we're really trying to break this lower, but we're failing to hold this as resistance. We've got enough buyers or sellers that are trapped here by maybe we're getting an increase in open interest. We get a large amount of sell delta, right? That's all confirmation that the market is setting up for a move towards these equal highs into this fresh level of supply, which is confluent with the 30-day VWAP. For me to become overly bullish and be like, hey guys, I don't know about you guys, but I'm thinking all-time highs next. That's when we start trading above the 4-week value high, because that's the confirmation to me that we're taking out these equal highs. But I can't tell you guys that this is going to be occurring right now, because the range that we're being capped in is the 16-day, where we have the 30-day above, right? Let me just show you guys here, the 30-day previous month as support. So this is basically the range. So the long setup will be this, reclaim, move towards 30-day. And then even then, I need to be determining, yo, we're now trading back above that 16-day value high. However, this is big ass resistance. If we cannot hold this after good news based on FOMC and whatever, I'm going to be looking for shorts there for a rotation all the way down towards this previous quarterly value high and the weekly single prints. Yeah, because from a, let me just show you guys from a composite perspective, what we're doing right now is we are still rotational within this 16-day composite. Do you guys see that? Wait, value area high, value area low. Until this day, this is important. We can't close above. What do? We flush it lower. If we cannot close above, I think we're heading towards the weekly single prints there, right? So that is why even if I get long on a sweep into the lows and a reclaim, I'm still going to be targeting the 30-day VWAP. But if we do this and then we close back within the composite, this right here is a sign that we are failing to break away from value, and we're going to be testing the opposite extreme, which is the value area low from value area high, because this is the composite, right? Value area low, value area high. So those are the two main trades for me heading into next week, where I'm like, these are only viable enough for me to be putting it out within the stream. If there's like something really changing leading up to FOMC or after FOMC, I might do a live stream on Wednesday as well, where I'm like, okay, this has happened right now. We need to be seeing this, but there needs to be enough interest for me to be able to do those streams, right? So we'll see how that develops anyways. So if we go back towards the prep here, hypos for next week, what am I looking at? For in terms of longs, I want to see a sweep of the lows into previous month VWAP for potential longs towards 30-day and potentially higher, right? We need to be aware of everything. Or I'm going to be taking a short on a failed break above 30-day VWAP, followed by close below 16-day composite value area high for shorts towards previous month VWAP and potentially lower, right? If shit hits the fan, we need to be positioned for that. That brings me towards the line in the sand. What is my bullish line in the sand? Where am I no longer going to be looking for intraday trades, and where am I going to be stalking for a more higher time frame rotation? That's below previous month VWAP. And the same thing goes for a bearish line in the sand, and that's going to be the 30-day VWAP. And with that, we have just wrapped up our prep for this week. Any questions? Let me catch up on the chat. Is it possible that market makers keep the weekend range closed to see me closed and I have a huge gap to see me open? Could definitely be the case, but you know, whatever it is, I'm liking it because I can just go about my day and I don't have to worry about, you know, things going into a huge trend or whatever. I think this is good. Why is the weekend not as important? Well, because the weekend is so super low volume that the composites that we usually use within, let me show you guys on CR chart. So usually a good day, a good value day looks like this. Nice, clean distribution like that, right? This is the weekend. Tiny ass value area. Look, this value area, we can fit that value like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4.5 times within Friday's value. So this is not relevant to me at all, right? I'm just going to be neglecting that entirely. Let's see. Let me just get a sip of my drink. War just filming orders. Yo, what's up, Hawk? Hope you're doing well, buddy. Haven't seen you yet. Still waiting on my tikka masala, bro. My recipe for my biryani. A plus setup will be deviation below previous quarterly value. Yes, high time frame. That's a plus setup. What would be an ideal short? So the ideal short, I think, would be this, where right now we are already seeing signs of weakness, but we have a poor high intraday, and we've got a key contextual level here. The best short would be a sweep of this high volume rejection bar there, close back with a knee composite. To me, that's an indication that we're going to be rotating towards the value area low like that. Entry, stop, right there, and TP 1, and then we're going to be taking another batch here, take profit 2, and then we'll see how low it goes. Opinion on previous month value low, they seem like clean levels now. Yeah, they're super clean levels, but for me to get really, like, I don't think if Bitcoin is bearish, we should be capping it up here. Like all the way back up here, right here. I think we're not going to be stopping, and we're going to go towards these highs. So I would rather see the 30-day getting capped for a rotation towards the previous month value area low. Do you watch for time and space, also on VWAP reactions? Yes, I'm treating VWAP exactly as I'm treating a market profile. So I'm looking at the same charts. Look, this is time and space right here, right? So I'm looking at time and space similar to what I will do on TPO. Can you re-explain market profile TPO again, please? How to use it, new to the concept? Well, honestly, I wouldn't have enough time within this current stream to explain the entire market profile concept to you. But, you know, if you're really interested, we do offer it within our platforms at primetrading.ai, where, you know, you just grab a subscription and it's included within your subscription, like order flow and market profile. There are many types of lower time frame triggers. Low time market break, delta for a breaker, demand supply, this, boss, stalker, SI. Could you give me some tips on what to use or what not? Don't use any of them, to be honest. For me, the lower time frame triggers, like if I were to explain something, what my trigger is, like as simple as I can. Number 1, divergences are gay, right? Sorry. Don't beat me up about it, but they're just lagging. They're not good. Like always when price is making a lower low and divergent, we're getting a divergence on RSI. Like who says this is the low, right? We could do another low and another higher high on the RSI, right? I think that's just gay as fuck. Anyways, the triggers that I use is 1, we need to have high time frame. High time frame context in the form of what is my high time frame support or resistance. For me, for example, last week, previous week, value area low, support. What's my trigger? My trigger for shorts is a high volume bar, point of control at the high where we close at the low. Or in other words, in order flow terms, a P-shaped distribution, right? This is an indication that sellers are getting absorbed. For the other trade, if I'm getting like a high volume bar, point of control at the lows, and we close back above the point of control, I'm getting long. Or in other words, this is a B-shaped trade where sellers are getting absorbed and we're getting some upside. If you take this into consideration here, when we take a look, right, we get a break within previous week value. We trade at previous week value area low. We close above the high volume point of control there. This is a long. What am I targeting? Opposite extreme. And that's it. Me done for the week. Only need 1 trade. Right? I could do more, but like rotations like these, I'll take them. Huge move higher into a 2-week value area high was this. This was a 2-week value area high. High volume bar, close below the high volume bar. Contextual level, number 1, 2 week value area high. Trigger, close below high volume bar, short, and you capture this entire move lower, right? You don't have to be, forcing trades. They will come to you. That's what I would suggest. Mind Over Markets by James Dalton, 100% a good book. Yes, 100%. There's I would skip the entire part about date types. If you see people yapping about date types is just full of shit. Nobody, trust me, nobody is going to be like, wait a minute. We got a double distribution trend day here. Maybe we're going to go up. Nobody's doing that. Everybody is mainly, or at least nobody that I know. We're all mainly focused about where value is. Where's the point of control shifting, right? Point of control remains at the lows. Is that a good sign? Yes or no, right? Are we forming a composite? So, date types are not useful at all. I would also suggest to just don't put too much attention on the initial balance, because the two laws that we have for initial balance is, one, whenever there's a wide initial balance, oftentimes you can compare this to the stand of a lamp, right? Whenever there's a big stand on the lamp, it's hard to knock over, so we're likely to remain rotational between the initial balance high and initial balance low. If you get a really narrow initial balance, then it is easy to get into a trend day once there's acceptance above the initial balance high, right? But if you're taking a look at the last few iterations here, like the last few days, this one ended up being right? Look, huge initial balance. This was an exception to the rule. If we poke out the value area high and the value area low from the initial balance, it is what is being capping this day. But then this should be a trend day, right? Or this should be a trend day. Like, this is a tiny initial balance, but we're not having a trend day. Tiny initial balance, trend day. So do you see what I mean? It's not, you shouldn't be putting too much weight to those things, as I think it's good to know the concept, but it's not really viable for you to really learn that, because it will not matter too much. Don't be sad about me removing the video about order blocks. I said it last week, my YouTube grind is starting this week. I'm going to be putting a lot of content on YouTube. It's going to be from beginner to advanced, etc., because I see just too many dog shit on YouTube, and I think it should be the norm where you just explain the thing that you mentioned within the title and just don't no chit chat around it. So I'm trying to become the best version of my YouTube self, to say it like that. Going back to 90k would be damn annoying. I mean, yeah, but it is what it is. We're just going to be trading the charts, right? I can't really do anything about it. I know that my bias is shifting below 100k. That should hold us hard time from support. Otherwise, it's going to be 94s. It is what it is. I don't care if I'm trading up here or down here, right? The trades will remain exactly the same. Would you please pass a comment on the platform for TPO and order flow? I mean, personal preference. Like, I'm really liking what Market Monkey Terminal is doing right now in terms of TPO. They've got big plans. I'm working, I'm putting my suggestions to the team and what I think should be really important. Right now, at this time and date, if you want to have the best TPO, it's still Sierra chart. It is, and there's going to be some developments from things that I know that will probably be better than Sierra charts. But for now, Sierra charts, mainly due to the features that I have. In terms of order flow, huge fan of extra charts, because their order flow is incredibly clean, as I've just showed within my last video, right, about the trend reversal charts, because right now they are the best that crypto has to offer. And I think it's good that we see multiple people, starting to get really competitive among each other, because that will push their products to the best version of it. I execute, it depends, Stein. So, sometimes when there's, usually limit orders for me are only when I'm not behind the desk and I'm trying to, get some sleep, or I'm away from the desk with the kids. Market orders, for example, are right here. If I was behind the desk right here with this filled auction higher. And you know, sometimes when the market is moving extremely quick, you'll have to ask yourself about chasing and market orders. If your entry point should be here, right? And you're like, okay, this is my trade, that's my stop. Entry, stop. You're calculating your risk based on that, and you hit a chase limit buy, and this chase keeps on chasing until 105.7 or 105.8. Is that what do you think you pay more with? Do you pay more with the fee from that single market order where you get in at your entry and then the market goes away, right? Or you give up all of this room with your stop still there. Like this is expensive, right? Compared to a single market order. So it depends on what volatility we have. If it's like, and also what book depth we have, right? I'm not going to be hitting market buy into an empty book, right? I within the CLI that I use, I have like an alert system that will alert me about, you know, you've got like 1% slippage, 2% slippage, and so on. So that I think that's something that you need to be using, or you should be using. Initial balance worth considering for each session. As I've said, no, in my opinion, not. You will not break your trading on the initial balance. In fact, I know for certain that if I were to neglect the initial balance on its entirely, I would be perfectly fine. Talking smack about diffs. Yeah, bro, I don't use divergences. I mean, on the higher time frame, like 3-day weekly, maybe. But for me personally, like a divergence, I don't know, you know. Not really for me, to be honest. So why is VWAP standard deviation one band called value area low, value area high? It's almost the same as a TPO layout, right? Where this right here is 70%, right? The value area high and the value low. Like this is 70% of the distribution of that bell curve. The point of control, essentially fair value, right? So I think there's definitely a correlation between the standard deviation 1 and 2 from VWAP compared to a simple TPO layout. If I were to overlap TPO on a developing value from the daily VWAP, then you will see what I mean. All right. So again, I think that's it for today. For those of you who have made it throughout the entire stream, do me a favor and hit the like button as fast as you can, because it genuinely helps me grow the channel. My goal is to get towards, I don't know, 10k subs at the end of the year. You think that's possible? I don't know. I'm going to try and push it, so share the platform with your friends. I want to thank everybody for your attendance within this stream. Fire away your question, Jake. I'll be reading it. And for those of you who are going to be closing off the stream right now, I wish you a fantastic Sunday, and I will see you guys within the next one. Take care.